Well, guess what? We're live. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Doc Talk, episode number 11, actually. So grab yourself something cold to drink, settle in. We're going to have us a conversation about a riverboat tonight. But first, we got some business to take care of. Welcome back, everybody. There you guys go. It just loosens up the crowd a little bit when I hit the buttons. The real question is, do you guys think at the end of it says Jerry, like off the Jerry Springer show? There's been debate. We're not sure. So let's go around the room here before we show this little promo video and let everybody introduce themselves, where you hail from. And yeah, so whoever wants to get started, I'll let you start off.
Don't everybody jump at once. Y'all know I won't shut up. I've been told I talk too much anyway, so I'm going to let her start.
There you go.
Just tell them. Tell them who you are.
I usually sit here while he's on these things. I don't ever talk. Hi, I'm Angie Funk.
And I'm Chris Funk, and we're from UCLA, the upper corner of Lower Alabama. And that's Scout and Ember barking over to the side of it. Chris, if you want to do it, Brady Bunch side, you're on that side. You go ahead, Chris.
All right.
You do that.
Fair enough. I'm Chris Payne, and I am in Central Texas. So north of Austin, south of Dallas, if that helps you guys orient a little bit.
Nice. I'm Jean Wilson. I am in North Florida near Tallahassee. Been with Jackson Kayak since 2017. And I think that was all you wanted, right?
Yeah. One of you Graces, go. Give us some grace.
All right. Well, I'm Sheldon Grace, originally from near Dothan, Alabama. I live in Auburn now, so a little bit further north, but still in South Alabama. But, yeah, I like to fish small rivers. That's kind of my main thing. And, yeah, that's pretty much it.
And I'm Clay Grace. That's my son.
Yeah.
I follow him around. Not him, or not him, not him.
But, Chad Brock's new daddy.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
From Southeast Alabama. I'm probably like 20 minutes from the Georgia line and 20 minutes from the Florida line. So I'm down here in the corner. So I get to buy a fishing license for 3 states every year. Yeah. But like Sheldon, I like skinny water. We like to fish little creeks and rivers. And I guess that's why we were asked to be part of this Coosa deal, because we get in the moving water and stuff. And we were blessed to be part of that. It was a pretty neat deal to watch the design of the boat and just be part of it.
Yeah, and for all you listeners tonight, this is actually part of the Coosa X team that had a big hand in designing this Jackson Kayak signature team water. Jackson Kayak team signature watercraft. Did I get that right, Funk?
Yes, sir.
That's a lot.
Please don't ask me to say Jackson Kayak easy high-low seat slider system.
Seat slider. I had a hard time with rudder locking screw.
There's got to be a blooper reel going to be out there somewhere. I just know, if I know Jameson, it's coming one day.
Yeah, for sure.
That's when
now, before we dive,
family friendly to what you.
Let's before we dive into this total conversation here and talk about what went into this, we want to show you guys that are watching live that may not have seen this yet. This is the reel or the promo for the Coosa X, the new boat by Jackson Kayak, the newest and latest river boat in the Jackson Kayak line. So let's show that for you guys real quick.
At Jackson Kayak, our roots run deep in moving water, in rivers. We got our start as a whitewater kayak company. And then the first fishing or dedicated fishing kayak was the Coosa. And the Coosa was designed from the ground up to be a river fishing kayak. And what does that mean? It means that it can go and handle moving water, light whitewater, rapids, tight areas where you need to be maneuverable and need to be able to turn, but also not sacrificing the features that help you get out on the water and catch fish. That line progressed and eventually became the Coosa HD. And the Coosa HD kind of evolved and took it to that next step. It added even more features and deck layout for an angler, but it didn't sacrifice the performance needed to get through moving water and get to those places that other anglers might not be able to get to. And now we launched the Coosa X. And the Coosa X is that evolution, that next step in the Coosa line at Jackson Kayak.
The neat thing about the Coosa X is that this was a team effort from the Jackson Kayak River paddlers, all coming together, giving their input, and having a say in what they'd like to see in this new kayak.
From the concept, being a part of the development team was just incredible, because it was a lot of folks with a lot of input, that each one of them had specific needs or wants that they would love to have seen in a boat.
We built it for people that want to get in moving water and have all the functionality of a updated and modern fishing kayak.
We've actually kind of gone back to some whitewater, moving water roots. I mean, this thing is nimble. At the same time, it's incredibly stable. I've crawled all over this boat, fore, aft, didn't matter what I was doing, and I never felt like I was going to tip over. Give me a moving water, it wasn't a problem.
The Coosa X is built for the river angler. That angler that wants to get to those areas that are a little bit harder to reach, a little bit harder to get to, where the fish haven't seen as many baits come by. You may have to run through some mild whitewater or get through some moving water or under trees or around rocks and be very maneuverable to get to where that X is, that X that the Coosa marks the spot.
The highlight of this boat being designed by the Jackson Kayak fishing team is that a lot of features that you think that you really want in a boat, well, they're there.
So in 2 strokes, I can do a 180 in this platform, and that's what makes it such a great platform for running moving water.
I feel like it really handles, the fast moving water really well, because you can kind of get into some areas that you wouldn't be able to get into with another boat.
This is not just a boat that's going to be great for people who are really efficient at running rapids. This is going to be a boat that is great for any level of experience. If you want to learn to fish rivers or even small water, this would be great.
Oh, it's a great boat, especially for the Coosa River here. It's just an ultimate river kayak. For river fishing kayak, I'm looking for something that's stable, that's easy to maneuver, in current.
It's awesome. Great seat, very high, a lot of rod storage, ton of deck space, really, really stable. It's got a ton of maneuverability into it. So if you're a fan of the Coosa series, this will be right up your alley. It's been awesome, and it's handled everything we've thrown at it today.
Everybody came together, they put their input in, and what came out of it is an awesome river fishing kayak, the Coosa X.
The Coosa X, a Team JK signature watercraft.
And there you guys have it. That is the promo reel for the Coosa X. So when we get into this thing and really start talking about it, Chris Payne, I'm going to kind of hit your blog and let's start with the why. Why the Coosa X?
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about in that article that I think a lot of links have been shared this week is, the Coosa to me has personal. So I want to go back to 2012. I had a Yellow Jacket Coosa. That was my first real kayak. I fished out of a a little, big box store, 9.5 foot sit-in for 6.5 years. And as a dude that's 6'2", I was looking for some comfort, and finally had squirreled enough money away. So I found a Coosa, a yellow jacket Coosa, and got to fish that on moving water. I dropped it in, and it was a completely different experience. And I think for a long time, those of us river rats that love to play on rivers and moving water and stuff, we liked that boat. But as like tournament fishing and all of that started to evolve, we needed a little bit more, right? And so then the Coosa HD, and it's kind of like the promo video showed, right? And I think it's evolved again, right? It's evolved even further, where now motors are coming into play. Horizontal rod storage is an actual thing, and we're not relying on the deck lid to just prop up a bunch of stuff. And then you've got a deck littered full of rods that you're trying to like measure fish on the deck of a boat in the midst of all this, and not get hooks in your hands and have to carry, pliers and dikes with you to do surgery on the water. Also, huge tank well. This is just the evolution, right? If I'm honest, people can read all the upgrades, but this is the evolution. This is what is supposed to happen with a paddlecraft company that's been around as long as Jackson has. Is we're constantly trying to get better. And when you get team input from guys who fish tournaments, guys who fish moving water, guys who fish all over the country, what you end up with is a boat that works for so many different people in so many different applications, and it's just an absolute joy to paddle. I don't mean to sound like too much of a homer here, because I've kind of made my name not being a homer, but this boat, while it has a few things that I would change about it, let me put it this way. I was so excited about this boat. Sorry about the dogs.
You're fine.
Squirrel running around out back. And I've got GSPs, and so they're going nuts right now. But something about this boat, like I got in it, and the first thing, so where we put in at the river in Texas, it was moving water. Like if you put the boat more than halfway in, it was gonna be gone. And so the first thing that I wanted to do was get in it and hit it with one paddle stroke and see if I could turn it. Right? If I could do a 180 with one paddle stroke in that moving water, that's what I wanted to see. That was the test, or else I was just going to get out of the boat and be like, okay, this one doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. It'll be great for everybody else. And I got in there, and man, I hit that paddle stroke and it turned around, and I was having so much fun. I hit it with two paddle strokes and was 360 in it. And it's kind of in that video a little bit. But the camera guys were like, what is this nut job doing? And I was just turning circles in it, like the teacups at Disney. And they're like, what is he doing? I'm like, I'm testing it. That's what I want to know. I need to be able to spin that thing around in the back of moving water and hit that eddy and be able to hold it in place, like with a good hull. Like that, the hull was the most important thing. And if they're like, Jackson excels at hulls. That's what we do. Moving water has been the thing. We started with whitewater, and that's why we know moving water, right? We started with moving water. We didn't start with, flat water, deep water, moving water. It's in our DNA. And so this is just what I consider the third generation of evolution for moving water fishing kayaks. So,
and I think on the sides of the hull and everything, you can really see the whitewater influence starting to come into that hull. Especially when you look down the side of it. I mean, you can really see that integration starting to come together in fishing kayak and the whitewater. So the design process, I mean, Clay, give us a little bit about what was that like? I mean, as far as, going through that with the team and hearing everybody else's different opinions and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, we kicked around a lot of different stuff, starting out. We kind of knew, I think everybody kind of had an idea kind of what they wanted, but being on some of those Zoom calls and, hearing other people's ideas, that was the fun part about it. The rod storage on the side, I remember I really wasn't thinking about that. A lot of times I just got rods thrown up there, and then being in this boat, I'm like, yeah, it makes makes a lot more sense to have them, down the side, especially when I'm in a river. I never really use the rod holders, the ones in the back that are coming up, because I'm in rivers and creeks and stuff's getting hung up. But that's why I've always just laid them on the front. And Sheldon's bad about, he's just got like rods everywhere. I'm like, so
He's that
it would
age.
definitely be good for him to kind of get
typical youngin.
Yeah, he's got stuff everywhere. If it falls off, it falls, But yeah, the process of just hearing other people, I was glad to see Jackson do that and kind of come, to people on the team and kind of ask for their input. I don't know that happens in a lot of different companies. I don't know. Maybe it does, but it was refreshing to see everybody kind of have their say in it. And then they, took that to the designers at the factory and they kind of, and it was, it was back and forth on a few things. But just to see that process and be part of it, it's neat. And then when the boat comes out, it's, you can see, different aspects of it that, that we talked about that. So it's neat for it to be basically a team boat. Everybody, was involved. Even people that weren't in the actual group, that did the Zoom, even people on the team, had gave their input on stuff. And, it was truly a blessing to be part of the design in a river boat, to, being a river person, river rat myself. So
now, Sheldon, who had the worst idea?
The worst idea?
Yeah, what was the worst idea?
I'll take this chance to shoot my shot at Jameson. The worst idea out of everything is Jameson needs to learn how to throw a different bait than a jackhammer. We just need to figure that out.
I heard about this.
Okay, that's probably the worst thing I've ever heard is throwing a jackhammer all day. But no, everybody had some really good ideas. I think it really meshed well as far as what everybody said. Of course, there was some things people disagreed on. That's going to happen whenever you have so many people putting input in. But I really think that the majority of the things that everybody wanted got meshed in really well. And at that point, when you're trying to make a kayak, there's really no bad idea to start with. Everybody's throwing ideas, and some are like, yeah, we're throwing that out. That's not good. And then someone's like, yeah, that's nice. So it's just you bounce ideas off each other, and eventually you get to, what we have now, which is an amazing kayak. And so I think, there's not really any idea that was just awful. I think everything was, inside the ballpark that we wanted to get to. And I think, Jackson and design team did exactly what we wanted, all of us combined and all of our inputs. I think they did an amazing job with it. So
now, Mama Jean, you have been a long time Coosa HD user. You love that boat, and you spent a lot of time in several Coosa HDs over the last few years here.
Yes.
How do you feel that this new boat will be able to change the way that you do things? Do you feel like it's a quality upgrade over where we was and how this boat's laid out compared to the original?
Absolutely. And I think that if I had not also been in the U-Pick, that I might have just said, nothing could be better. Nothing could be better than the Coosa HD, because I was just so meshed with that boat and feeling so comfortable with it. And I thought, I don't know if I want the U-Pick. I don't know if I want not having, the hat. And it just seems like it's too big. But once I got in that and I had that expansive deck to, and it doesn't turn as well as the Coosa HD, but the U-Pick, gave me that feeling of the expansiveness of the deck and how wonderful that is for a lot of the things I like to do on the river. It really is just kind of pillage underneath, map with my net and look at little critters and, a deck in front of me. So when I got into the Coosa X, here was my big deck, but it was handling so much like the Coosa HD, and I think even more so. Like Chris Payne said, that thing was turning on a dime. I couldn't believe how maneuverable it was and how comfortable it was how well it paddled. Because, you know, it seems like you're in a big boat when you're on it, but really when you look at the length of it, it's really not that much, you know, it's different. So I was totally impressed with the Coosa X, and I'm sorry, little HD, you have a place, but I'm going to get replaced.
Now a buddy boat.
Yes,
absolutely. And you're a big user of the hatch. I've seen the inside of your hatch in a few photos, and you use the hatch quite a bit, Gene. So I'm sure you're happy to see a gargantuan hatch on the outside of this Coosa X.
That hatch, I mean, you could put your rods down. I can't really do that in my Coosa HD. I've been able to with a few, but most of them I really can't. But yeah, that thing is expansive. You can put dry bags down in there, camping, you know, equipment. So yeah, that's a huge plus on that boat is the big front hatch.
Now over to Chris and Angie. This is the big question of the night. There's one Coosa X at the Funk household. Whose is it?
Well, as of today, there's one here, but there's one paid for that's coming. And the color got changed to somebody's pick. So there will be two here before long. We will not have to worry about it. I am a smart man. Keep the bride smiling.
Especially if she's not a fisher person anyway. He has always outfitted me very well so that I will go with him. And that's always been pretty important.
I resemble that statement here at home. My wife is always, I make sure she's got a nice boat. So she does. Makes her like to go.
She probably had the most poignant thought when we immediately trying to get ready for the launch. We knew that we wanted to do a side-by-side with the X and the HD. And the only way to do that is to get them on the water together, you know, and she, as I've been trying to include her in more videos, because I love having her around, and two, it seems like she could speak to another audience that I don't reach. So it's been beneficial for us to have her there. But we decided, all right, we're going to run that boat along with the HD and go see. And her statement was, you don't know that you need this until you paddle it. Because if you're in that one, you know, in the HD, it's a wonderful boat. Yep. It will do everything you want it to do. But when you get in this one, it is so eye-opening. And I mean, literally, like Chris said, when we get in it, she's spinning it, same thing. And I did the same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, I can turn, not only can I turn 180, I can turn 180 and power out of it in a straight line and get to wherever I need to. And then it has a good glide too, and it behaves in the wind. It doesn't just wind vane. It actually turns sideways. You know, we carried it out in some gnarly conditions and really got to kick the tires in it from whitewater to bad weather. She paddled it because she said, look, if I'm going to talk about it, I need to know about it. And I need to have all of my thoughts solidified. So as a reviewer, that's the best way you can be, is to actually get in it and kick the tires.
Yep.
But her statement about you don't know that you need this until you get in it. And I still say that. I'll tell it any person, if I'm near the water with that boat, especially if you're running your mouth about anything negative, sit your butt in it. Yeah. And I'll shut your mouth about it. I promise you.
Now, this one's kind of for anybody that wants to answer. And I think, because I know we've all been here, as these boats have gotten better. Well, but let's back up. At one point, we all jumped into Jackson Kayak for our first time. And we let off the paddle and we felt that boat glide. And we went, holy cow, this boat is just, it's moving all on its own. And every time we get a new boat, it's like we experience that all over again. Do you feel like the Coosa X, getting in a brand new boat, a brand new hull design, do you feel like you're experiencing that same thing again?
Can I? I got my hand up.
Chris.
I was so blown away from it because it's like, I don't think about the Coosa line as a big water boat. I don't think about it. Even though I did 50 miles in the Everglades in the HD, I threw a cast net, for mullet with sharks swimming around me. And it was that good of a hull that it was capable of doing that. It wouldn't be my first pick to do that because I think of it as a riverboat. I promise you, the X is at home as well on the flats chasing a redfish as it is in the whitewater of the Chattahoochee River. And you can't say that about many hulls. You cannot. There's just like I ran a Cuda 14 down the Coosa River, and that was a bad idea. I swam 4 times that day. That was not good. So they're not all designed to do everything. But I promise you, I would put that X on any body of water and fish for any critter that swims and not feel outgunned.
Well, and Chad, can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the people outside of Jackson that know me as a boat reviewer, right? I've done Coosa X is my 68 kayak that I've gotten in and reviewed. I've been in dang near everything. And there have only been 2 boats of those 68 that I got out of a demo and was like, I have to own that boat. Mm-hmm. One of them was the newly redesigned a few years ago Hobie Outback when they changed it, and this one, the Coosa X is, and I own a NAR, but I didn't get out of that boat feeling like, oh my God, if I don't have this right now, I'm going to have some kind of heartburn. Like I was like, this is a great boat and it does this and this and this, and I like this and this is great. But the Coosa X, I was going to steal it from Richard Penny and just not let him know. I was like, well, I don't know what happened. And then he would check my barn and he would find it. But I had that much of a reaction to being able to play in that boat, being able to fish in that boat. I fished in its side saddle. You can see that a little bit in that promo video because I wanted to test it for my people that are fishing saltwater down at the coast that are fishing in 1.5 foot of water. Can I sit side saddle in this, touch my feet to the ground and hold myself in high wind when I'm fishing in super shallow water? Yes. The answer is yes. And I got off of that. And the first question, Jameson, I know I have a different boat on order. What do I need to do to change that? Because if I don't have this boat, I'm going to hurt. And if I have to, it is, okay, here's the other thing. It is one of 2 boats that I have been willing to pay full retail out of my pocket the moment I got off the water.
Yeah.
That's how big of an impression it had on me.
Yeah, and I can kind of attest to that. Just being on the factory floor the day we took the first one off the line before it took off to you guys down in Alabama, you just looked at it, just sitting there. And I think pictures do a great job of showing the boat. But until you see that boat in person, it's like, holy cow. We set the boat on the floor. I stood my fat butt up on it, stood on the floor. There ain't no give. It was like, holy cow. And it was just like, yeah, I said the same thing. It's like, I need to change my order. I need this boat. And Pierce Funk knows this, and Gene knows this as well. You gonna have to pry my Liska from my cold dead hands. There's a competitor. Yeah, there's a competitor now. Talking about these trips you guys took, obviously the boat left Jackson Kayak and went straight to the heart of Alabama, the Coosa River. You guys jumped in it. Let's talk a little bit about that trip and what you guys endured down there. Whoever wants to go and start off on the great family adventure. I mean, we're just the Brady Bunch here having a Brady Bunch conversation.
Talk to Sheldon. He's the only one that caught fish.
Wait a minute. I seen Jameson holding one. Are you saying?
Jameson wore him out. Jameson wore him out on the Coosa.
No. Wait, hold on.
I mean,
He caught the biggest fish on the Coosa. He did not wear me out though. Okay? He caught the biggest one. We'll give him that. But whenever you throw an 8-inch bait for 3 days straight, you're gonna catch the biggest fish. Okay. But
I will tell you that Sheldon taught me a lesson on my own river, because I am not a jerkbait fisherman. And that is one thing that I have had a hard time doing. And I watched him spank my butt for an entire day catching on the jerkbait. And so the next day when we hit the water, you better believe I might be dumb one day, but I ain't going to be dumb too. And so the next day I followed up, and I had to watch him to learn what to do with it. I mean, I didn't even know how I was supposed to act with it. But by golly, the second time I caught fish, and I was proud of myself for picking up a lesson on my own river. And the funny thing is that me and Clay are the most likely to just play around with 3-finger brim while everybody else goes bass fishing out of the whole group. But I kept waiting on that big bite from Miss Jean. We're gonna get her back up here and get on it too. But the best part of that trip was the people on this call. I promise you that was the most fun. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I know our trip over to the Coosa started at 7 that morning, didn't nothing up till 10:30 that night for us, and poor Clay still had a couple hours to drive home. So that was a long day, but it was good memories. And
that was the third. That was the third day too.
The third day, yes, sir.
Third day in a row.
Yes, sir. So, that was
a bit tiresome.
And that's what we said. That X that's the treasure. That's the treasure sitting right there on this. Those friendships. The beauty, the eagles we saw flying, the leaves that we saw changing, that's the treasure, man. Yes, I mean, I honestly didn't have to rip one lip. And it's funny because she the whole time, here you go, I got another Chris. And for those of y'all that don't know, I'm her eternal bait boy. So that's my job.
Don't touch.
Yep. But it was so much fun, and I'd love to do that, and I'd love to get more team members to join in with us to do it, because it was a blessing.
That was fun.
Oh, it was a blast.
I was definitely the weakest link on this trip.
Oh, I doubt that.
Oh, come on.
I doubt
but
that.
You got to understand, Miss Jean throws logging chain for her monsters, and she's got to understand. I got guppies. She's got monsters, so we gonna have to get her off her logging chain next time she comes up. We'll get you took care of, Miss Jean. I promise.
It's not necessarily the size of the fish, because I was really happy with the fish that I was catching, even though they weren't big monsters. I don't always
catch a good one.
Yeah, I did.
Caught a good one.
Happy with it. But part of it was that I was not used to those moving waters.
Right.
These rivers are slow and lazy, with eelgrass up to the top, which acts like a drag chain.
Right.
And, so I'm puttering around, and I can stop when I want. I can cast where I want. I can look at gear when I want and not have to think about it. But as soon as you get on the faster water with rocks that can throw you over, let me tell you about that. That's a whole different ball game. It really is. As soon as I got into that Coosa X, I felt really confident. I felt so confident in that boat. So, I think that I'm kind of the same way as Chris Payne saying, I need to have a boat that can go from river to lake to inshore, coastal, creeks, and out on the flats. And I'm really thinking that boat is going to shine.
Now, Chris Payne, you just got back from you was actually out with the road trip angler crew, doing filming for the first episode with the new Coosa X. How was that adventure? And you had TNG out there and TG
canoes and kayaks. So I don't know of another dealership that is as much of a bunch of river rats as those guys. If the water ain't moving, they ain't fishing it. They know moving water boats, and we fished on their river right there by their shop. That's why they have their shop there. And They know the ins and outs of it. They know every chute, every eddy, every rock, boulder. They know it all. And the water is lower in that river right now. So it's a spring-fed river, so it's always got water in it. But the level goes down based on the rain.
Yep.
And so Miss Evelyn, who is the matriarch of TG Canoe and Kayak, she let us know that the river is lower than it's been since before 1950.
Wow.
And so every little boulder, every little rock, everything was exposed. And so we were going to get a real technical run through. Yeah. So Lance is talking, Lance in the comments there. So Dwayne and Alex, father and son that were out there with us with TG Canoes and Kayaks, they put it through the paces, and they have names for all these different, kind of danger places. They're not dangerous if you know what you're doing, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna go swimming. And what was great about it is, well, first off, now I understand why Jameson had a jerkbait tied on when we started the day. I was like, what are you doing? Apparently he had learned from Sheldon.
Oh, you shouldn't have told us that. we're gonna rip into him now because he wouldn't give it up for 3 days.
I will tell you, he threw that thing for about 10 minutes, and then he tied on a jackhammer and threw that for most of the day. But what was cool about it is, so we had moving water, class 1s and maybe a class 2, like maybe. So not super like what I would call, complex as far as the amount of water pouring over. But the tight technical turns you had to do, like it was playing ping pong. It's like left, right, left, swing out, kick past the eddy, dig, and then turn like 180 degrees the other way and shoot down another chute. And we're talking narrow chutes. So 48 inches wide at the most for some of these things. So you've got to hit it just right, and you've got to be able to turn that tail in, or else you're going to be playing bumper cars with these boulders. And what was cool about it is I got to paddle. So I was in a Yellow Jacket Coosa X because I kind of begged my way into that one to test that colorway just because of the nostalgia that it had 10 years post.
Right.
For me. Richard hadn't even been in that boat yet, so I was the first one to paddle that Yellow Jacket, and I know that just broke his heart, but I was like, I don't really care. I'm gonna do it anyway. And so I got to paddle that for a ways, and then I had to leave a little bit early because we were thinking, maybe 4 or 5 hours on the river. We get into hour 7, and I've got an hour and a half drive back home, and I've got to get to a concert that my kid is doing. And so I had to call Miss Evelyn and say, hey, can you pick me up? She's like, yeah, I can do that. And they worked all that out. But in doing so, I talked to Dwayne, and Dwayne's like, hey, do you mind if we switch boats? Dwayne was in his Coosa HD, and then he was going to paddle the Coosa X the next 2 days when I wasn't able to be there. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. And so we swapped boats. And so I got to test on the last bit of technical water, the Coosa HD, after testing technical water in the Coosa X, and feel the difference on the same river, on the same day, in the same conditions. And that ended up, unintentional consequence, but it really just solidified for me how different the boat is. Even though a lot of people may not think it's that different, but if you're paddling one and then you paddle the other, it's like Miss Angie said, yeah,
it's eye-opening for sure.
Yeah.
I can remember, I've just got one little quick story. I remember the first time I knew, I spent 2 days there on the Chattahoochee, and but the first time I really knew that boat was just going to really excel in water was Miss Angie was right below me. Me and her were kind of over here beside some rocks.
Yeah.
He hooks into a fish. Chris is down here checking out because we saw a fish jump. I think it wound up being some drum or something in there. and he had kind of went downstream. It's a pretty good little run there. It's not any like white water, but the water was moving right there, like 4 or 5 miles an hour. I mean, it was moving. And I just had a good vantage point. And when he's coming back to her, he was coming over there to help her with her fish. When he's coming back to her, it looked like Michael Jackson moonwalking across this shoal right there. It was like he wasn't even paddling hard. It was just, and I could see the water just coming by me, and he just gets right back to her, no problem. And I'm like, that right there is pretty cool. I was in a good spot to be able to see that. And the boat just, there's not very much of it in the water, to be honest. And it just, the way that hole is, it just excels in that type of water. And even if you're in, where I fish down here, it's more technical, like what Chris was saying, but the maneuverability is going to be good, because it's smaller creeks and stuff like that. But the water can get to running pretty fast. But I do a lot of paddle ups, from I'll put it out landing and paddle up. And the HD's really always been a great boat paddling upstream to me, and this boat is just going to be even that much better. So that's what I'm excited about, is being able to get in there and do some paddle ups.
Yeah. And I want to add one more thing, Chad, because I know we've talked about maneuverability, and I've probably said that more than I should have. I definitely think that's worth mentioning. But the other thing is a lot of times when you have maneuverability, you lose tracking. And that has not been my experience with this boat. You have maneuverability, but it tracks well. On our Texas River that we fish down here, we had some flat stretches, right, where the water kind of runs off and then you've got a flat stretch. And so we're able to basically just kind of boat race these things and just dig and see how they do. And I remember on the original Coosa way back when, a decade ago, we had what we called nose walk, right? It's great for moving water, but when you paddle straight, I mean, you're walking like a Zara spook. This boat doesn't do that. This boat has a good keel in the back end of it, but it's not something that keeps you from being able to be maneuverable. And that's, quite frankly, that's some kind of wizardry to be able to get a boat that you can spin, but will also track straight. Like, you don't see that much. And I think that's kind of been lost a little bit because a lot of people put motors and pedals on everything, and we're doing it too. But for somebody who wants to paddle a boat and doesn't want to have to fight fatigue, and they want to be able to turn and they want to be able to fish moving water, but they also need to be able to paddle a straight line, like if we're down at the coast or something like that, I don't know one better.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say about it, I know Chris Funk talked about this. Me and him talked about this before, but you can trim that seat forward if you want it to track really well. And that's one of its, biggest strengths is if you're in a fast-moving river, you can, trim it back, trim that seat back where you can turn it really fast. But if you want to go somewhere on a still body of water, like where Miss Jean fishes, per se, you can trim that seat up a little bit and make it track really well. So I think that's like, a big positive with this boat.
That's a good point.
Now we got one audience question. I'm gonna throw it up here real quick. How do you guys compare paddling the Coosa X versus the Liska on a flat water situation?
Well, I'd say I started out in the OG Coosa, and then my next boat was the Liska. So I fished the Liska after I got out of my OG. And I haven't been on much flat water as far as, where we took the boat. Most of it was moving water, but there was some flat areas. And I think, like I was saying, it just tracks really well, which is one thing that the Liska does as well, is it tracks really well. But I think you get that that positive of being able to fish the faster moving water more effectively with the X than with the Liska, per se. So I think that's like a positive. You kind of get the best of both worlds, whereas the Liska, I don't think it excels in the extreme fast-moving water like what you can do with this X.
Well, and I know, Chad, you saw the picture. Some folks have seen it of the entire team. Right at sunset, the last day on the Coosa River, and there were 2 Liskas, the U-Pick and the Bite out front, and a Kilroy all out in front of me a good distance away, and I was in the X. And, I stayed back because I wanted to take the picture, but y'all were, 150 yards, 200 yards out in front of me. And they never checked up. I mean, nobody's worried about Chris, so but they just kept going.
It was getting dark.
But I thought you're right. And it was a long day, and that was after 9 hours of paddling, so we were all whipped. But I was able to catch up with all those boats without having to kill myself. I mean, I picked up speed, caught up to them, and tracked right with them. I think as far as effort goes, it's no more effort to paddle one over another. I would think if I primarily fish still water, the Liska would be, a wonderful choice. Mm-hmm. If you spend any time in moving water, I believe I'd lean toward that X just because it can do that and do them well. Yeah. It's not like you're not even it's not a trade-off, honestly. It can do both of them. The Liska is still a wonderful boat, very stable. The stability, is especially primary stability is wonderful in that boat, where the Coosa X has a little bit less primary stability, but still way enough to lean over to release a fish or fool with anything in the rod tubes or and not feel like you're going over. And then once you stand up, oh my gosh, that thing it's like standing on a runway. It was amazing to me. So I know it's like apples to apples on those, but I would say if I fished more moving water than still water, I would lean toward the X. If I fished, mostly still water, the Liska, you're never going to go wrong with a Liska. But that X is going to cover every base. It's going to cross every T and dot every I in every freshwater body of water that I know of anyway.
Yeah. And I think from a guy who was not here when they launched the Liska, I think what you have to think of the Coosa X as is it's a Liska plus, right? So all the great things about the Liska, it's that plus the ability to do moving water, plus some of the new features that are on that boat, and they're both great boats. But if you're picking one,
Same thing. I've got a question for Chris Funk for people who fly fish. Can you tell them, what you did in testing, what you can do with the rod and stuff? Because I think a lot of people. I had a guy ask me, he said, "What about, he's got a Mayfly, and Mayfly is a very stable boat. Is it as stable?" Was this question, and I've talked to him a little bit about primary and secondary stability because there is a little difference there. I mean, the Mayfly is really solid, but can you touch on that for people who may want to get a Coosa X and fly fish out of it?
Sure enough, yeah. Because you were the first one to ask the question, and I think I texted you the pictures that we took the back part of the rod butt holders and actually put them back in the tank well, and you could put 4 9-foot fly rods in there if you wanted to. Of course, most people I know wouldn't carry that many. It'd be 2, at the most. But the one thing where that boat is going to shine is in the maneuverability. The fact that you could turn it and point it like the Mayfly. I mean, if when I was standing in the Mayfly, I would have to put the paddle against my chest, and pull to turn the boat
really
around, and a few strokes to turn around. You guys know that I use the paddle belt a lot. With the Coosa X, I'll be able to pop that paddle out of that paddle belt and one hand spin the boat, change it wherever I want it to go, and then it'll pick back up tracking where I want, put it back in my paddle belt, and go back to fishing. And by changing out those thumb screws on the foot pegs to the low profiles, there will be literally nothing on that boat that would catch fly line. So, it will be a very, very good fly boat. Without a doubt.
Just a well thought out feature, I tell you. I'm not even a fly fisherman, but
we'll get you one day. One day we'll get
you. I'll bird nest a couple of reels for you.
Jane's going to show up all dressed in Sims.
Oh.
She'll be busting 12-pounders on number 6 yellow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Gene, come on.
Now, I forgot what I was going to say. How about that? I was contemplating and it went. Deuce. It's been a long week. We launched a boat this week. It's been a little bit of a week.
Real.
Well, and I've had discussions with people on, a couple of things on my channel that we've talked about has been, not only is that tank well up front, the hatch, it's larger than the HDs, and the opening, Angie's pointed that out. The opening is larger than the HD, so gear goes in and out of it better. And I've had one person say, I can't believe it doesn't have a rear hatch. Well, I'm sorry, the rear hatch on most boats are useless. They're, to me, but having that tank well with the ability to strap, the tank well's huge. I mean, you could put a body in it. You could, whatever you want to.
Maybe a deer. Let's go with a deer.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't say what kind of body, Chris.
The barrel would show it too.
Yeah. But then be able to strap over and strap that gear down, and then have all the inside room. And then on top of the front deck, you could put more if you wanted to. You could stay away from the house if I made her mad enough, I could stay away from the house for 3 months and never have to worry about coming back. So for that aspect of it, that's also another facet of the diamond that is the Coosa X.
Yeah.
I think one of the questions that's come up a lot that you've seen, Chris Funk, and I've seen, I'm sure you guys have all seen it too, is the weight and portability.
Yep.
It's kind of like this, I don't know, and you guys tell me what you think. It's 2022, almost 2023. They make some really cool kayak carts that are not badly priced. If you're still dragging your boat with the cam strap down a hill, you don't have to do that anymore.
I will say though, Chad, that I talked to Matt that's at the factory, and I had an HD, and dragging an HD is a lot easier than dragging OG Kilroy, a U-pick. I mean, you've got a keel up there, it kind of digs in. So just, that boat performs well in the water, but it also performs well on the land when you're dragging over stuff like a lot of us river fishermen have to do. It's kind of banana shaped. And when you put a line on it and start pulling it, it really doesn't feel that heavy. Because we were making a few runs there, and I helped Miss Angie get her boat up some of those shoals, and I didn't even have a strap, and I'm just grabbing the handle and pulling it up, and it's pulling way easier than my U-pick, to be honest, because just the way the design of the hull is. So I think that weight thing, people are going to say, stuff about that it's heavy, but when it gets in the water, it's not heavy. And even dragging it, through some areas to get to the water you want to fish, I really don't think it's going to be that bad. Same thing, dragging it over a shoal. That's what Matt had told me. He said, I kept thinking I was going to start hitting something, but it drafts so shallow. He just, never even had to get out of the boat. He just kind of pushed his way through places.
Yeah. And don't forget, ergonomically, that, every one of us picked that boat up in the parking lot and guessed less than what the actual production weight is.
True.
And the boat that I have is about 7 or 8 pounds heavier than what a production boat is going to be, because it was poured extra thick and, checking in plastic. So we all guessed less than what the production weight is on a boat that weighs 8 pounds more than what the production weight is. True. So that's saying something now. And because you guys know, I was the one that I fought for a lighter weight boat and
loudly.
And I knew that they were going to scream and holler whenever it came down to it. But I got to admit the thing is, and I said it, if you add everything if you add a brush guard and a winch to a truck, it adds weight. You add a trailer hitch to a truck, it adds weight. You add 4-wheel drive to a truck, it adds weight. There's literally nothing that you could add to the Coosa X. I mean, it's just totally loaded. It's bristling with stuff. And each thing that gets added adds weight, but it's all usable. There's no fluff on that, at all. It's all usable gear.
I think that's a good segue to this. The Coosa X is not gimmicky.
No.
As the HD was before it. The HD before it had some gimmicky things in the hatch and, different things like that. The Coosa X, what you see is the ultimate riggability of a kayak with the tri-track and the way that it's set up. We didn't give you any gimmicks, I think is fair to say, wouldn't you guys?
I agree. I agree with that. And if you want to just leave it stripped down, if you want the open deck and you want to just put one fly rod on there and not have anything even in the tank well, and you just, because a lot of times I'll do that. I just take one fly rod, maybe my camera and stuff, and a little box of flies, and just go. And I don't have to worry about all the other stuff, a rod shooting out everywhere. So you can just strip it down and stay really clean. Or you have so much gear track, on the sides, you can rig it out however you want. But there's no, like you say, there's no fluff, like Chris says. It's what you see is kind of what you get. Everything there does have a purpose,
And having the tri-track where it is on the sides actually makes it really easy to pick up from the side. Unlike trying to grab it by one handle with one hand, that the tri-track, you can actually get two hands on it and pick the boat up. And it's pretty easy to carry on its side. To me, it's as easy to carry on its side as the bite is toting on by one hand, and the bite's 20 pounds less than it is. So ergonomically speaking, the weight doesn't show up near as bad as folks think it will. Because trust me, I know several of us have had big rigs in the past, and lifting big rigs up and putting them on top of trucks was part of the reason I've always fought for smaller boats. And then the funny thing is, you end up with the Take Two that weighs more than what the big rig did, but it's actually easier to pick up than the big rig was.
Yeah,
it's a lot of it has to do with balance and ergonomics.
And I've carried the big rig up a set of stairs, and it wasn't all that fun. Chris Ritchie wants to know. I picked it on the wrong thing. He wants to know if you can deliver his Coosa X to Missouri for him.
Oh, sure. As soon as it warms up, Chris. Yeah.
Oh, top 5 podcast. I mean, that's just for me more than anything. Cheers to you.
Cheers, Chad. I'm telling you, part of what we don't see is all the stuff that happens behind the scenes.
Right.
All of the editing and the footage that's being put together, and the stuff happening in the factory, and it's the amount of content that's going out that has to be prepared well before the launch, but then you've got to keep up, so bravo. And we are really lucky to have you, and lucky to have the rest of the team.
Yes, sir.
Really been
very much so.
Well, we've got a good team as a whole at Jackson Kayak. I mean, this project started with you guys. It started with R&D. It started with the people on the factory floor. There's a whole lot of hands touch this project. The guys in customer service, Matt and Charlie, they took the boats out and beat the time out of. And if you haven't seen what Matt and Charlie do to boats, you ain't seen nothing. They literally beat these boats to death, especially something like a Coosa, because that is their primary boat, and they beat them down. And they beat this thing down. You guys all took a boat out and shook it down, and dealers have been involved. I mean, it's not just our team; it's dealers like TG involved in doing some testing on this thing when it first hit the water, and it's a lot. I mean, a lot of hands touch these boats before they come out the door. And I think the Coosa X is the testament to where we're headed and how we're going to get there.
Yeah. Shout out to all the guys that were on a lot of those Zoom calls and stuff that hadn't really got to see this boat yet. I mean, we're down south. It just, logistically, it just worked out.
Yeah, it got cold up here.
Yeah, it got cold, but a lot of those guys are really going to. They're going to put it through its paces too in their areas. And a shout out to all of them. I'm not going to even try to name one of them because I'll forget somebody, but they know who they are. And I can't wait. I'm kind of like Chris Fugg. I think he's excited for some other people to get a boat too.
Yes, can't wait. And then poor Jameson, who was bouncing all over the country driving these things. I mean, man, I know when he did the walkthrough, I talked to him later on that evening, and he's like, I hope I didn't look tired. I'm like, dude, you look wore out. And I said, please get you some rest. Stop talking to me. Go to bed, please, right now, because you need it.
Super human or what? I mean,
so let's talk about rocker, because the last two boats that we've introduced at Jackson Kayak have had the rocker to them. Obviously, the NAR has more rocker than a boat of that size has had in ever. Usually, people are used to big flat boats like the Big Rig or the other brands. The Coosa X, obviously being a riverboat, has a lot of rocker. Let's talk about the benefits to that and what that's allowing these two new boats to really do. And I don't know who wants to start. Maybe go.
I vote the pro. Take it, Chris. You know more about rocker than any of us.
Yep.
So we can talk about the NAR first, right?
Right.
So I fished 2 tournament seasons out of the Big Rig HDFD, and fished it in some gnarly stuff. Like I have some cell phone video in 35-mile-an-hour winds in fresh water with water just right.
Yep.
There wasn't a lot of rocker on that boat. So what rocker allows for you to do in big wave water like that, wind water or whatever, is it's going above and over it rather than trying to plow through it like a bulldozer, right? So we're doing a little more Dukes of Hazzard and a little less Hulk smash.
A little less semi hitting a wall.
Right. And what that also allows you to do is stay on top of the water higher, right, as you're coming up, and it directs the water around you through the hole that allows you to maneuver better. On the Coosa X, I go back to that old to the OG Coosa, right? Like Sheldon said, I looked at pictures from 10 years ago, and man, if you counted from the water line to the top of that thing, that sucker was thick, right? Yeah, big front end on it, and that was for moving water, right? You want to be on top of the water, not going through the water, because when you go through the water with moving water, that's a bad combination. So you want to stay on top of the water. So what the hard thing about the OG Coosa, when you're building in rocker, you have to be purposeful with it, is when it's tall like that, you become like what Chris Funk said, like a wind vane, right? And you're catching more and more wind. So for guys who don't know what I'm talking about, think of it as if you're fishing in a kayak and you're sitting down and it's a windy day, and then you stand up. That's the equivalent of having you are a sail, right? So if you are not purposeful with how you build rocker into the boats, then you end up either being a sail or a bulldozer, and you don't want to be either one of those things. I love the way that both of these boats handle in the water. Just the fact that you have so much boat control in a large, boat like the NAR, which is a battleship unto itself, or something as nimble as the Coosa X. And we're using the same brain when we think about how these things are going to handle water and engineer it into that. Like, I know other companies are trying to do their best and stuff, but they just don't know how to handle water that doesn't stay still very well.
Right.
And so I've done a horrible job of explaining that, but basically rocker allows you to maneuver in the water and over the water rather than through the water, right? We're acting more like giant ships that are on the ocean. Their job is to go up and above the waves, not right through the middle of the waves. Those are different types of boats. And so both of these newer boats have gotten back to that and have done it in a way that you're not sacrificing performance either. So you get the best benefits of both worlds. And
That's the ability to trim that seat and drop that nose back. And you got to look at the difference between the OG Coosa, which was a high-low, and then the HD, which was 2 positions high, 3 positions low, maybe 6 inches of seat movement fore and aft in that trimmability. Yeah. But then you get this boat, which has probably close to 10 inches of track that you can move. And then when you go from high to low, that also moves it a good 3 or 4 inches. So you probably have 13 inches of forward aft movement if you wanted to, the ability to trim a nose down if you didn't want it to move that much, or get that sucker all the way back if you want to get, buck wild with it and raise that nose up a little bit. And then that's when, like Clay talked about it, almost dancing over that moving water. It's just kind of tickling the top of it and rolling. And it's an amazing thing to see.
And let's talk about one more thing, since you're talking about the track and that kind of stuff. This is by far the best seat that's in a paddle boat.
Yeah.
Right. The fact that you can trim it, it's the easy high-low. It is a comfortable seat. Like, I didn't have any kind of kayak cushions or lumbar or anything on it. And we were in that boat, I was in it 8 hours. The other guys were in it 11 hours. Right. And I was able to bring it up a hill, load them into, load stuff into a truck, get in the truck, drive back to my truck, and get into my vehicle and drive an hour and a half home. And I didn't feel like I had gotten in a fight with a Chicago Bears linebacker. Right. Yeah. That doesn't happen in most boats at my age. Like, I'm in my mid to upper 40s. And so I'm not a spring chicken like Mr. Sheldon is. It's not, am I going to hurt when I wake up in the morning? It's what's going to hurt when I wake up in the morning. And so having the ability to trim that and high and low and a super high quality seat, that is great for river rats.
This seat doesn't, one of the things that always makes your back hurt, and you don't realize it till you go to the chiropractor as you get older, it's the older seats would pinch in as they sag, they would pinch in on your hips, and it just kills your back by the end of the day. And that's mainly what caused that. But these new seats are really nice and flat, and they're just great.
Yeah.
Got a question for here. How stable is high seat?
I'll start. I accidentally ran the first 3 sets of rapids in the high position and didn't even know it. I had to make a conscious effort. I should probably paddle this in the low position. But the ability, so if you are familiar with moving water, and you like to edge around, moving water and eddies and stuff like that, and like that control, like that kind of hip feel, like you'd have in a whitewater boat or something real low to the ground, like a Ferrari type, feel to it. The high position, like it's perfect for people who are familiar with, how to dig a hip in and, catch an edge and just, float right out. Like, if you're a brand new to kayaks and you're kind of a wobbly giraffe leg dude that has never really been in a high position, and you've only been in one of those little foam hurt your back seats on a big box store thing, probably don't run moving water in it until you try it in flat water for a little bit, so you can figure it out, because you will feel stability and stuff as you're moving. Like, if you put your nose over your shoulder, you're going to feel that stability kick in. But like, I ran those first 3 sets of rapids in the high position, not even realizing it. So yeah, it worked.
How high is it comparable to the seat height in the U-pick in the high position? So that's kind of a loaded question. It depends on if you're talking about a 2022 U-pick or a 2020 U-pick, because there's actually different seat sliders in those two boats. So if it's the 2020 U-pick, yes, it is higher. If it's the 2022 U-pick, it's the same seat, the same easy high-low seating that's in the 2020. So yeah, it would have the different new high-low seating is in the U-pick that's in the Coosa X.
Yeah.
But you do
It's pretty high. I mean,
water, right? Like
What's
with the Coosa X, you are a little bit higher. It's like the boat sits higher in the water, so you will be a little higher off of the water. But as far as like deck to where the seat is, it's the same.
And I shared pictures with our team of the X in the high position and the Liska in the high position measured off the deck, and it's from the deck height. It's about a 3-inch difference in the X over the Liska. So it is I call it an advanced high. It's higher than it. And if you want to compare it to that boat, it's a considerable difference off of the deck. I was going to ask specifically Chris. I know I think Clay, when we had it, a couple of us paddled with a 250, and then I paddled with my Copperhead, which is a 260. And I was in the low position, but I tend to be more of a wide angler paddler, so I like that, or a low angler paddler. I like that 260. What did y'all think would be your better paddle length on this?
I think 260. I think mine and Sheldon's both were 260. In that bending branches, that Navigator, Angler Navigator I had, it's that adjustable ferrule. So we were pretty far out. We usually have them pretty long. So I think a 260 really for the X is the way to go.
Yeah, I keep mine really long because, I mean, y'all know this. Normally, when I hop in a boat, I don't sit down at all.
He's standing in a Kilroy and moving water. I'd have been swimming, but yeah.
He's young.
Yeah.
Yes.
But,
yeah, he's not fat either. That's surprising.
Yeah.
He's not chubby.
Not yet.
So
he's working on it.
I guess I am the short man in the group because I make a habit to test every boat that I'm in with the exact same paddle. So since 2015, I've tested every boat I've had with a 240 centimeter Bending Branches Angler Pro, the same paddle. And I paddled it in high and low and didn't feel like I was busting my knuckles. I never hit the side, the gunwales.
And I think some of that is personal preference, whether you kind of got a higher, something, if you're sitting down, I think, sometimes it's when you don't, you really, it's kind of different, for each person, I think, how long your arms are and stuff. So,
well, and you see, some paddlers will be, they're only moving their arms. And then some paddlers are moving their core and doing like they're supposed to. And the ones with the cores probably get away more so with that shorter paddle because they're moving their entire body to get away from the side of the boat. True. And I guess for me, I go back and forth from really good form to I'm just being lazy to go over and fish, But I know like she had the 250 and then swapped over my 260 and was much more comfortable with that. So I guess that's something that folks need to be aware of that with the boat kind of find what you like. Of course, you should do that with every boat that you get, no matter what you get. That the good paddles make a big difference, and we definitely like what we've got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think bad habits or consistency, depending on how you spin it. I think the rule of thumb, like if you're in a 36-inch boat, you really need a 260 paddle, regardless of the boat, just in general, right? Just as a rule. But I'm a stubborn old goat, and I like consistency. That way I can't say, oh, well, it was a different paddle, so the boat performed different. Like I want to reduce as many variables as I can, and having the same paddle for every boat. I even paddled the NAR when I paddled the NAR instead of pedaling the NAR with that 240. So that's a little bit more of a chore, but it can be done.
Tenfold.
So you guys got any questions for each other? Any others?
When are we going to get together again?
Mara, Thanksgiving, we're all coming over to your and Angie's house. Did you know? Get the turkey ready.
See you next week.
Y'all can be there with her. I'll be at work.
What are you getting with the one that you just ordered?
Say again?
What color is Angie getting?
Ooh.
The playa.
That's what I
think. She saw it on that live walkthrough, and she's like, because I had the yellow jacket. That was the plan. And but when I saw that, and I could hear her, she's like, "Oh, that is gorgeous." And I'm like, "Well,
It's
I
all
know it
over.
needs to happen." So
Did Jameson not have a plyo when he was with you guys?
no, there was only
No,
one.
there was only
Yeah,
one when he
yeah,
left.
he
the
left
first
the
time.
only one with me.
Okay.
So yeah.
So
And she is not a camo boat fan. I would camo everything. I just
Yeah.
Oh, come on, y'all have seen my Liska.
Yeah,
Angie, I have to agree. There is plenty of boats here, and there is not one camo boat in my arsenal. If they could all be blue, they would all be blue. I was so happy when Playa come out.
yeah,
I think
she's the
everything
most
we have.
colorful critter on the river. So that's that. But we definitely keep her looking.
My wife
good.
is quite envious of your Liska, so we have a take two in the knockoff version now. That's what we're going to call it. So we got a question. An Orion 25 with the seat removed and a 35 in the tank well. Will it fit in the Coosa X? Have we tried it?
Haven't. I don't have a 25 right now, but I'm telling you that the seat width from that there'd be no doubt. I mean, but there'd be no doubt. And 35, no doubt in the tank well. And I'm sorry, Aaron, I don't have a 25, or I'd try it for you. But I mean that area is huge, and especially if you took the slider system out, then have just open floor there.
That's a lot of beer, someone says. Does the Coosa X come in a pedal drive? No, the Coosa X does not come in a pedal drive. That's the Coosa FD available still, and we also have the Bite FD if somebody's looking for something smaller like that to take on the river. The Coosa FD is actually not a bad river boat. It's got a little bit of a different nose to it, not as bulbous. But yeah, it's
and paddles surprisingly well for that boat.
Surprisingly well.
I paddled it over in Panama, in the Pacific for a almost a day, and was keeping up with a lot of the folks pedaling. So I was very impressed with that in that aspect.
And as far as both our ladies go, for the other ladies that might be watching, because statistically, in case you guys didn't know, because I found out this week because I looked, there are more women that follow Jackson Kayak Fishing on Facebook than there are men. It's actually 58%.
Well, I mean, look at what they're here to look at.
There's a lot of beards out there.
It's the eye candy, right? It's eye candy.
Our calendar will be available in December, ladies. Just hang on.
Oh goodness, count me out of that one.
What about
James
Instagram, Chad?
On Instagram? I don't actually have that statistic in front of me. I just remember it this week because I was actually looking for promotional things. So as far as the ladies go, how do you guys feel like this boat paddles for you? And what would be your advice to other ladies that might want to say, well, I'll give this boat a shot?
That's a good question. Go for it, Angie.
That's because you don't like to talk. I've learned you pretty well quickly. Well, for me, and we all laughed about it because I am not on the fishing team. That's
honorary.
She just catches more fish than everybody combined.
But I'm the typical gal who never fished, never did anything of the sort, who went out with the outdoorsy guy and married him. So what do you do then? If you're going to spend any time with them, you've either got to start doing some of the stuff that they enjoy, or you don't see them anymore. So I started fishing with him. And then when we got into the kayaks, well, first we got into the canoes and then the kayaks. So he's kind of brought me along and taken very good care of me. I will have to say that, take good care of the one you're bringing into the sport. Now, paddling the Coosa X as opposed to some of the others, I love my Liska, not just because it is a beautiful boat and it's gorgeous, but I love the way it paddles. I love the way it handles. But when I got in that Coosa X, it was fun.
She's just giggling.
I was just spinning it around and just giggling, literally giggling and having a good time. Even for a gal who's not experienced at all in a paddle boat, get in and try. That's all you can ever do. You know, it might not be perfect the first time you try to paddle, and you might get frustrated, but you will enjoy just being out on the water. That's the best part of the whole thing, and then getting to meet other paddlers because it is a family. And I will say that has been one thing that the Liska has done for us, having the girly boat. I have lots of little girls that will come up to me when we're, putting the boats out and like, oh, I love your boat. Well, while I'm talking to them about paddling, usually Daddy comes up and starts talking to Chris, and they're getting into the more serious conversations. But here I'm having a chance of getting a little girl possibly interested in one day getting on the water.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exciting to me. And that's one thing we like to do as a couple, is to take families out and to introduce those little girls to paddling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And what I know, Miss Jean and Angie, both of them on the river, we talked about that, because Jean had some trepidatious moments about the whitewater, and Angie's not comfortable in serious moving water, even though she's been down the Coosa a few times. And both of them, we said, the thing that folks need to remember is nobody ever talks about the memories from sitting on the bench.
That's right.
And when you take that step and jump out there and that's why it's so important for guys. Let me tell you right now, if don't buy your boat and your gear and then get your bride the Walmart special, the cheapest PFD, the cheapest paddle. Don't do that. If you wouldn't paddle with
she's not going back with you.
Don't make her paddle with it. And when you raise her, you got an elevator. It's kind of like that, you've got an elevator. Well, you elevate her with a PFD that's built for a lady. You get her a darn good paddle. You get her a good boat. You keep her as comfortable as possible. She will go again and again and again with you. And that is a wonderful marriage tip as well. But to me, it's just extremely important. But I was so proud of both of these ladies that pushed envelopes, and they found their X, because that was a little extreme for both of them, and survived the day with smiles and memories. And man, just that just like woohoo!
They both killed it. It
was awesome. It was awesome.
They did great. It was.
That's because y'all took care of us when you needed to.
So much for holding.
You could have done it.
Now, as we get ready to close this thing out, I want to go to Chris Payne on this one. 2012, everything starts really taking off in the kayak world as far as the fishing industry goes. Original Coosa, like we've been saying. There's still a lot of room for growth. Here we are with the third evolution, the Coosa X, but we can still show up to the ramp and get those questions of they just can't believe that this is a thing. How much more do you feel like teaching wise and with all this evolution, are you still surprised that you get this question?
I think I am. Every time I do a workshop, every time I'm at a boat show, every time that I'm just taken out on the water, I am keenly aware, just by the people who come and talk to me, that, man, there's so much more room for growth. And what's also cool about it is fresh eyes when they come to it. And I hope I'm answering your question right. But fresh eyes when they come to it ask new questions sometimes that we've not considered. Right? When you've been in the market a long time, they're like, oh, well, why does that do that? For that reason. And if our answer is because it's always kind of been like that. Maybe we need to kind of reevaluate some of the sacred cows that we have in the kayak design world. Why do you have frame style seats? Why don't you use Bumbo style seats? Why do you use, and that's hyperbolic, but why do we do the things we do? And I think that's the thing that I love about Jackson, right? Is we started with the OG Coosa, and then we went to the Coosa HD. Now we're at the Coosa X. And by the time we get to the Coosa Z cubed or whatever it's going to be, in another 10 years or whatever, it's going to be that much better because we never stop trying to improve. That's what's important with boat makers. If, there was a guy on one of my feeds, I shared all the launch material and stuff because I'm excited about the boat. Let's be honest. Right. So the title of the article that I wrote is why the Coosa X, and somebody kind of smarted off and was like, so you can sell more boats.
Yeah, I seen that one.
And so I didn't answer him because I want to stay professional. But my answer is, if we're not constantly trying to change and we're trying to pass off the same thing, like vehicles change every year because our expectations of what are in vehicles change every year. If we're not changing our boats, if we're producing the same exact boat for 10 years straight, people aren't going to buy your boats. You have to keep up with the times. Like high-low seats are a must now. Like frame seats that don't pinch in, that's a must. For river rats, the fact that we are just now really getting to horizontal rod storage in river boats, that's probably 10 years overdue. We're like, well, just stack them on your deck. It'll be fine. We put these little notches here.
Yeah.
Well, 10 years ago, that's what we did. That's not really.
And that's one thing. Yeah. That's one thing on the design team that I'll be honest, I never really thought of that. But some of these tournament guys, and stuff, and when they first said that, I was like, I really didn't even really know what they were really saying, to be honest. But they're talking about getting that rod kind of inside the gunnel there, where on the HD it was on top and kind of exposed, and they learned that from being in these other boats and even the NAR and stuff, that hey, these rods need to be right here, and that's really
and accessible from the water sitting. I mean, not just storing. You need to be able to get to them and change and put them back in while you're sitting. And this is very doable for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm with you. I didn't think I needed that.
Because a lot of times I've got stuff thrown, and I'm kind of minimalist. I don't really carry a bunch of stuff a lot of times, but it's going to be nice to to have that, because there's been, I've broke rods. You got one hanging off the end out here, and the HD, you could put a rod in there, but it's not like rod storage like we have on this X. It's actually really protected inside the boat, not going to fall off if your strap comes undone or something like that. It's secure, and coming down some rapids, it's good to have that. Or if you're dragging through a laydown in a little creek and you just want to put your stuff up and get over get through the stuff. So it's an advantage to have it there. And it's something that I really, when people start talking about that, I'm like, well, that's a good thing. But now seeing it, it really is a nice, add on to that line, as well as some of the other stuff. You can get into other stuff, the hatch, the hatch and the HD in the back really wasn't that big. You could fit a dry bag or something in there. And I saw where somebody said, a kayak camping type of kayak needs to have a hatch in the back too. But that front one is so big. And I don't know what all Chris has tried to put in there, if he's really tried to pack it out. But if you were, like he said, he could go for a while, if he got kicked out the house, you could fit quite a bit in that front hatch. And
let's two different camera bags, our lunch bag, and a drone up front, and it didn't even fill up half the space.
Yeah.
And then the beauty is all that water that we ran in those 3 days of punching through and over stuff, and not one drop of water got into that opening. Not one.
And rumor has it you also hauled a Jameson Redding.
Oh, that was sitting on it. Yes, that's a.
We could have left him on that rock out there in the middle.
Yeah, we could have. But now we've got the pictures, and there's like a Disney tune to it, and it's like a whole new world. You know, it's just wonderful.
I might try to make a reel. I wish I had video of that. I just had pictures of that.
I don't know.
You already got me dancing on the riverbank.
Those pictures that you and Angie did for Valentine's Day last year, I would love to redo that, but have like you and Jameson in there.
Yeah, I tried to get him to do the Titanic pose on the front of it, but they weren't for it.
Yeah.
No, that's a lot of good answers, and we're excited about the third evolution of this Coosa X and the Coosa line. So as we close out tonight, I want to let you guys each go around the room, thank anybody that you need to thank, and tell them where to find you on the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTubes, whatever it is that you do. We'll start with Mr. Clay Grace, and we'll just work our way that way.
Well, first off, just like Chris Funk said, it's about the people, and it's really not about this boat, to be honest. I mean, it's a toy, it's something to play with, but really the memories that we make, and getting to spend, without sounding too sappy here, but just getting to spend 3 days on the water, with Chris and Angie, and Gene and Jameson and my son, and we were lucky enough to have good weather. I mean, that's the memory. That's what I'm going to remember, about that part of it. And so it's really about the people. I like these Jackson boats. But one reason I'm in a Jackson boat is really because of the people. If you want to know the truth, it's an added element to it. It's, I've just made friendships, over the years, and it's just good people. I don't know how to say it. And other companies have good people too, but it's just jives good together. So, I can't, it really doesn't matter what they come out with. I'm probably going to be in a Jackson no matter what they have. Even if they kick me off the team tonight, I'm probably going to be paddling.
Well, you're all in jeopardy because you're on this show.
We are. But yeah, I don't really have any sponsors. I really want, my Instagram is Fishing with Grace. You can get on there and check out some pics and kind of what we do. Sheldon, it's mostly pictures of Sheldon. But I like getting out with the family. Some of my greatest memories are fishing with him and my brother. And when COVID hit, my wife, she really wasn't a lot else to do. So she started going fishing with me. And now I'm really run a guide service that I get paid nothing from, just paddling her around and letting her throw spinner baits here and there. And I'm kind of in the back of a DT a lot of days fishing these little creeks, but I wouldn't take anything for it. It's a lot of fun, but it's really about the people, and thanks for having me on. This has been fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Mr. Sheldon.
Man, I gotta say,
tell the ladies where to find you.
I got a good one that's here right now, so he's in there studying as we're talking, so we're gonna stick with that one. But
smart
man.
But anyways, no man, the biggest thanks I gotta say, I mean, that man right there, I mean, everything that he's done for me. That way, is it that way?
Yeah,
that way. Anyways, just him and my uncle, just them really introducing me to fishing, just kind of, really helping me grow up, you know what I mean? Just like they introduced me to kayak fishing and fishing in general, and I just wouldn't be anywhere without them too. And so, I don't know, it's kind of eye-opening. It's really a blessing, when you get to fish with your dad and your uncle, have a good relationship with them, and share that common ground of fishing that we, no matter what, I don't live with them anymore. So, but no matter what, we can spend time on the water. No matter what's going on, we always have that common ground. So I just want to say, thank you to both of them for just kind of opening me up into the kayak fishing thing. So most of my pictures will be whichever way he is. On his Instagram, I kind of have a personal page, but we kind of share that one as our fishing content. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
How about you, Mama Jean? Where can they find more Jean?
Well, as far as being thankful, like we did that last year for the JK Thankful. Holy moly, this team is kind of, like a big old family. And I am so glad to be with Jackson Kayak. It really is life-changing. Kayak fishing in itself is something you just don't understand until you get into it, that this activity can change your life. But being part of the team has just been such an added bonus for me. So, I'm with Jackson Kayak. I am with Team Orion Coolers. Yeah, baby. And I don't have a close by dealer, so I'm actually affiliated with the Dugout Bait and Tackle in Marietta, Georgia. Never been to the shop, but awesome folks there, and they are a Jackson dealer. They've got demos on site, so I think they're going to have they're going to get the Coosa X there by December 3rd. So if you want to go try out the new kayak from Jackson Kayak, I think it behooves you to get your butt in that boat and take a good paddle around their pond that's on site there. On Facebook, I'm just me, Jean Wilson. On Instagram, I think wanna do 0817. Does that sound right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
it.
I think that's you.
When my daughter was little, probably 2 years old, she was a go-getter, and she would say, you want to go to the library? You want to do that? You want to do that? So
I like it.
it's kind
like
of family thing here.
Just look for the 15-pounders. You'll find
There
them.
you go.
Yeah. Big old 15-pound fish, Gene pops up. How about you, Mr. Payne?
So I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, at Payne Outdoors. On TikTok, it's more me making like soft plastics, kind of how-tos and stuff like that. So that's a little bit different content, but Facebook and Instagram are all at Payne Outdoors. And that you can also check out PayneOutdoors.com has pretty much all of my reviews since 2012. So we review all kinds of stuff. If it's in the kayak fishing world, we review it. We do all kinds of stuff. I say we, it's basically me, myself, and I now. So I like Mama Jean's kind of thankful for, I'm one of the newer guys to the Jackson family. I've paddled Jacksons for over a decade, amongst other boats, but this is kind of new, a new foray for me, because I've tried to stay distant from boat manufacturers so that I can talk about all the things, and typically they're pretty limited. So it took a significant group of people to convince me to be willing to kind of saddle up with a group. And so I guess that kind of starts with Richard Penny. Yep. Richard was like, hey, look, we really need to talk about this. And we talked about it a long time. I've spent a lot of years with Richard judging tournaments and stuff with KBF back in, 2014, 2015, 2016. And, we spent a lot of hours together judging fish and talking about kayak fishing. And when I started getting to meet people that were involved with the team, like Dustin Nichols, here in Texas, and Michael and Lance McCorder, and all, I'm going to leave somebody out, but like all of my Texas guys, and I decided to make the jump. they're like, all right, you're in the family. Welcome to the family. And like, these guys are immediate second family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about people first that are also building awesome boats. And that's a different feel than really, I think anybody else is doing. I think there are a lot of people who want to claim that, but this is where you see it, right? It's in action, not in words. And so I hope to be here a really long time. And if I get fired, like Clay said, I'm still going to, hopefully that happens after I get my Coosa X.
Yeah, me too.
Bury me in my Coosa X. That's going to be my new tagline.
We'll be like the meme. We ain't freaking leaving. All right. The Funky Tribe.
The Funky Tribe.
Go ahead, ma'am. You're closer to Chris.
Well, for me, you're just going to see me on his pages. That's just
fine.
all there is to it. I don't do my own posting or anything, but I will be in his pictures. I'm his top model.
Yes, very much so.
So, but I've been around on the edges for years now, and it has been a blast watching this boat come about from my little viewpoint in the passenger seat, and not being in the design team, but not being in all of that, but watching everybody work so hard to make this the boat that it is. And it's been just a joy to finally get to put names and faces together, and you start seeing me a little more and more as the as the months go along now. So
that's a good thing.
Well, that's it. Because for my built-in model, Ethan, after he got married off, is like, and chased his little female and then got married off. I was on the water a lot alone, and it's very difficult to photo boats and things like that by yourself. It's just not easy to do. So she's gracious enough to jump out there. I know we photographed for Bennett Branches before when it was lightning storm, and we literally had minutes before it was a life-threatening situation, so let's run out there. And then, of course, the X the other day, we had to get on the water, but the hurricane was coming, so she takes them for the team pretty regularly. But team-wise, man, I can't thank. There's so many folks, and some have come and gone down the way. And this past October, I celebrated 10 years on this team, so I'm a little long-timer member. But what a blessing it's been, and through the some of the rough days and the rough times and the COVIDs and the everything else, and to come out and be able to be a part of something. The thing I've always loved, like I think Chris said, it's more about the people, and no matter what we talk about a boat or whatever we review, if we're not truthful, then we're no better than the electrons that we're printing our stuff on, And to me, that is our face and our name, and I want people to be happy with what they're paddling. If you're not paddling, Jackson, I'm going to help you. I want you to be happy with what you're paddling, because the people that are happier paddling are going to infect other people. And one of those people might be somebody that I could talk into paddling a Jackson. And the reason I paddle a Jackson is because I love a Jackson. That's it all comes full circle. So we behoove and benefit ourselves by being truthful, honest, and as big a benefit and help as we can to other people on the water, because every single one of us started somewhere. And that's what a lot of people in this industry tend to forget. So every one of us took that first step. Every one of us took that first adventure. And the more that we can help do that, so for us, and she falls along the same line, but for me, my life revolves around 6 F's: my faith, my family, fur, fins, feathers, and photography. And I know I fudged a little bit on that last one, but the photography part is a lot of fun for us, and to be able to share the things that we're surrounded with and the beauty that we see. Feral One Photography is my site. I think that's what it is on Flickr. I think I'm Feral One Photography on Instagram. Chris Funk, the Feral One on YouTube. And we do the same thing. We try to help people, because she doesn't look like me. So she's a little lighter. She's a little cuter. She's not as mean. So I've been trying to include her more in videos to kind of bridge the gap between guys that look like me and perhaps their counterparts that might need questions answered. So we're doing like lady PFDs and things like that are really helping to open up doors for other people to get on the water. And it doesn't matter if you got a fishing rod in your hand or not. We go on eagle paddles regularly, eagle cruises. Sometimes we'll just go out and just to have time together. I honestly believe a pair of kayaks would probably be some of the best marriage counseling a person could have. And if you're not married yet, go out and survive a tandem, then you got a good shot of staying married.
Yeah,
so,
true.
So anyway, but yes, thank you guys, and love this team, love being a part of this team, and everything it represents.
Well, as we close this thing out, I got a little something special. You guys can't hear it.
Oh no. It's so special, it's hidden.
The secret.
Can't hear it, can you?
Nope. You can't hear it.
That's disappointing. Play the Brady Bunch theme song and nobody can even hear it. So thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate you. We will be back in action.
Of a man named Chad Brock, who was running this very crazy team.
So we'll be back in action. It looks like on December 1st, we will have the next Doc Talk. So stay tuned, stay with us, and we'll be back.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Chad.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.